Hello and welcome to Leaders with Heart. I'm your host, Paddy McDonald, and today we're speaking with Miranda Marriott. Now, Miranda has a fascinating background where she went from studying psychology to taking the leap of faith in becoming an intuitive business coach. And in this process of starting her own business, she at first got met with a lot of challenge where she found herself $20,000 in debt as a single mum, really questioning whether she was on the right path. But through faith and continuing to go on the journey and then actually applying some alternative business practices into her way of doing things, she started to skyrocket her success and now helps women all around the world make millions in business. And what I love about this conversation with Miranda is just how inspiring she is as an example of what's possible, but also the way that she really breaks down some of these concepts that can be quite intangible at times, concepts like manifestation or energy and things that can be labeled woo-woo. She breaks them down in a way that really shows just how rational and logical and practical they can be as well. So I got so much out of listening to this conversation back, and I know you're going to really, really enjoy this. So sit back, enjoy, and let us know what you think. Much love. Welcome to the Leaders with Heart podcast. I'm here today with my good friend Miranda Marriott, who is an intuitive business coach who's been running her business, empowering women in business for the past 7 years. And before that, she was an expert in the HR space, then moved through to studying psychology and really applying a lot of these principles to making massive, massive gains in financial success in business, and then transitioned that into empowering women in all areas of their life through her programs such as Alchemy and a pilgrimage retreat that she's actually just got back from. So welcome, Miranda.
Thank you.
Thanks for
so
being
good to hear you, Paddy. Can't wait. You're one of the most, my favorite people to talk to, and I always love where our conversations go. So I'm excited, really excited.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being here. So, firstly, how was Bali? You just got back from, was it a week?
Yes. Yeah. Well, a week in the retreat, and then, I had pretty much 2 weeks either side to have my own holiday and that sort of thing. But, I can't explain just how phenomenal it was. It was the first retreat I've ever run.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to run retreats from the beginning of my business. I wanted to be a coach since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
So it's just so exciting. I don't think there's anything more exciting than, for me, like magic manifested, which is just, we have a vision, we have a dream, we have an imagination, and actually physically seeing it and experiencing it and living it. And I have a practice that I daily will do and tune into something I'm creating, and I will see it and taste it and sense all these elements and see this experience with a client or whatever it is I see. And then actually to physically have those things happen, it's just, I just can't explain the joy, that brings. So it was just beyond my anticipation, like beyond my imagination of just how beautiful it was.
Yeah, amazing. So, and I think we'll dive into this as we go, but I think what I'm already seeing as you express this is you've gone from a dream that you had when you were, let's say, 16, that's now like you're living it out on a daily basis, to now actually helping others do the same with tuning into their real true dreams and then build that into their lives, whether that's financial or any other areas of their life.
And that's also the piece that I really love about this work and this particularly, because it is about a holistic experience. For me, at the beginning of my business and for a majority of my life, like I was very career driven, very business oriented, like money, lifestyle, but this work of like the intuition superconscious is just, it's about your whole life being full and every element of you and every dream you have to be met, not just one area that we can be into, at the cost of everything else. And I think that's so important because that's what fulfillment is, isn't it? It's our wholeness, and it's holistic. It's not just thrive in one area to the detriment of everything else,
Yeah, amazing. So I can feel how exciting this is, that literally we're talking about living our dreams, which who doesn't want that? Let's just take it back one step, just so anyone who's hearing some of this and is feeling the excitement of the possibilities that come with this, but also is maybe this is new for them, right? So some of the words we've thrown out there are can potentially have different meanings to different people. So I'd love to hear your explanation of what you mean by like intuition when you say you're an intuitive business coach.
Yeah.
And then also off the back of that, you mentioned a word in there called the superconscious. So that might be something to build on as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, the superconscious and intuition are the same thing. So, you know, to me, those words really mean like it's our highest part of our psychology, you know, and our highest part of our ability, our genius, our creator within ourselves, our highest potentiality, you know. I believe that we have like an unconscious part of our mind, a conscious part of our mind, and then there's a superconscious. And psychologists have actually tried to find it in the brain, you know, and determine it. And it's just us tapping into our highest potential of within our psychology and, living from that place and living connected to that highest potential. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Limitless, but I loved that movie. And, you know, he takes a drug to connect to his genius, you know, part of his brain to then create crazy results in every aspect of his life. But
based on that concept that we're accessing 10% of our brain.
Yeah, and there's actually 90, you know. But the thing about the superconscious and intuition and our genius is that we don't have to take a drug. Like it's actually there. We just need to know how to tap into this dormant energy that we don't know how to tap into. And as children, we often are quite intuitive. I don't know if you remember, like for me, I remember there were times I'd know things. I couldn't explain why I knew it. I just knew it, you know, and we are more tapped into our imagination. We are more tapped into intuition. And as we go through schooling and life, like we're told not to trust that, not to listen to that. That's not rational. It doesn't make sense. Like cut that part out, you know. And so what this work is and what I've gone on a journey is actually remembering and learning how to tap back into it because we all have access to it. And I had times of intuition throughout the last, 20 years as well. But it's when I've actually gone through this process I've learned through how to tap through the superconscious with a structure that actually I can call upon it when I want, as I want, to the degree I want, and it's not just this diffused thing, So for instance, like as a kid, I remember I knew this, we lived in Malaysia and we had a lady who worked for us and supported our family. But I just knew there was one woman and I was like, my brother and I just knew she wasn't good for us, And she ended up stealing from us, and we knew, and we just had a sense, an innate sense. And that's because the superconscious, the intuition's got thousands of millions of information it's taking in and it gets it that the rational mind can't understand,
How do you differentiate between a rational thought that comes in and this knowing that you're describing?
I guess for me, it's often more like that word of the knowing, it's this guttural body sense of just, I don't know why I know, I can't explain. It just feels true, and it just resonates with truth. Whereas rationality, things make sense. And there's so many times that I've made decisions that are intuitive that on a rational point, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. This shouldn't be what I do, and the other way around where something makes sense, but then it ends up not great because intuition was telling me no, even though my rational mind thought it was a good idea, So I think it is difficult to explain, but it to me, it is a sense of just knowing in my body and a sense of just, this is true and I can't tell you why, and there's no reason, but it just is.
Okay.
And I mean, I also have just different practices I've learned, through the work I do now that helps me tap into it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a feeling that you can't deny, really. Yeah. Like, for instance, at the beginning of my business, had no idea what I was doing, and I didn't really know any strategy. Yeah. And I just had this knowing and sense that I should go to this networking event. And I didn't know why. I just was like, okay. I sort of had a relationship to God or whatever I felt was God at the time. And so I just thought God was telling me to do it. And so I just went to it. And I was at the end of the networking event and nothing had happened. I was like, why am I here? I had a newborn son. I'm like, this isn't easy for me to create these experiences. Like, why am I here? I went to the bathroom. I was like, God, universe, why am I here? For show me, what was this about? Got out, and literally as I got out of the bathroom, I met this guy, and he was a part of this FM radio station. And anyway, he invited me to this breakfast network event thing. I was like, okay, whatever. Maybe this is it. I just felt like this is something, Yeah, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm going there. I don't know why this man means anything. I went and I meet this woman there, and she then is partners with my business, becomes a referral client for me. I created a whole year's worth of my business from that one interaction.
Wow. Okay.
you know, I couldn't, and there's so many times I could tell you these magical times that happen. I could not have figured that out. I couldn't have put that together. I couldn't have orchestrated it. Her business was an exact alignment and she exactly needed what I offered. And it was just perfect match.
Yeah.
And how do I know that I've got to go to this thing and then I've got to meet this guy and then I've got, you know, like, so that's an example of when we follow an intuition. And I didn't even know I was following my intuition.
Yeah.
That was haphazard at the time, but just what can occur,
yeah.
you know, these synchronicities, these miracles, like these things that open up.
Love that. That's such a great example. Might be a great time as well just to like give people some context that because this can sound really amazing in like a promise, but it can also feel quite hard to believe, I think, for people who haven't experienced it. And I include myself in that to a degree where I've had a degree of it where every time I experience it, I'm like, yes, I get it. And then I go to the next level of needing to trust a bit more, and I'm like, nah, not for me. So what I'd love to just actually give people some context of is like, you're not someone who's just like had this felt sense and living like a very let's call it woo-woo life, right? Which nothing wrong with that. I'm a big woo-woo proponent, but some people find that a bit hard to relate to.
Yeah, for sure.
But like you've had real tangible success in your business and the people you serve.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and like I think you're quite open with like your numbers, for example, that you've been able to achieve because it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
You're open for me to speak to that. Like I noticed on your social media, you talk about how you went from being a single mum starting from nothing to making $200,000 in a month of sales and then making that more of your consistent reality as well. Which again, like this is real money in the bank. This is not some concept. So I just love to bring that in for people to know that like there are people like Miranda doing this, and like there are people that you're helping. You've got probably countless case studies, right?
Yeah. And like you said, most of them are not, most of the way my journey was, and the majority of the women I work with and the people I work with, we do not come from spiritual backgrounds. Like we actually are more practical, strategic, business, money, you know, jobs, like professional, like backgrounds. And we begin to explore the spiritual world, you know? And so for me, like 33 years of my life, I'd studied psychology. I had to figure it all out. I had to understand it all from a rational perspective. I was very just always in my head. I'd worked in my business for 4 years on strategy alone and just trying to figure out the strategy code to make money, to get 10K months. And I always just approached my whole life from I need to know and I need to figure it out and I need to control. And, you know, like that experience I had was a one-off thing. You know, it was very random. And I didn't know how to recreate that ever again. And I didn't know what happened and how. And, you know, so my whole, 33 years of my life was very much from just a practical business career orientation. You know, I didn't even, it was only sort of 4 years ago that I even understood or began to explore this whole superconscious energy, spiritual world, you know, like before that I didn't get it. And the reason why I actually got into it was because I was really frustrated at how hard I was working. Like, so I was a single mom. I started, my husband and I separated when I was 6 months pregnant. And I started my business when my son was 6 weeks old. And I just had to make money because I wasn't really receiving any from anywhere else. You know, I was on mat leave. And so it was a practical thing of I needed to bring money for my son. And if I went back to being at a school, I would have been away from him more than I wanted to be. So I was like, I need money, you know. So I wanted to do my business, but it was also I need to do my business. And so I just had to make money for us. Like that was the practicality of it. And I wanted to spend as much time as my son, so I wanted to earn as much as I could with the little bit of hours I had, you know. And I worked for sort of 4 years hardcore, like doing everything I could. At the beginning, 50 hours a week with a newborn son. Yeah, wow. You know, trying every strategy that anyone ever told me and every action they ever said and, like, you know, everything. And, you know, I got to maybe a 7K month sometimes, but then I'd go back to a 2K and then 1K and then, you know, and it was just so irregular, so inconsistent and so hard. And I was just depleted and exhausted. I couldn't keep going and trying so hard and just receiving nowhere near what I was putting into, you know. And interestingly, it's funny how we stumble across this world, right? A woman was in a coaching group I was a part of, a personal development group, and she made $100,000 in 2 months of her business. And I was like, what the hell? I was so angry. And I was just like, I've done 4 years of slaving away. And like, I was just so pissed. And then I ended up being like, okay, well, how did you do it? Because I was like, okay, she's done that. She's getting something I don't, I haven't got yet. And she told me about this energy thing. She told me about this Abraham Hicks book, and it just said, just read this. And, she didn't give me much.
What was the book?
The Ask and It Is Given book.
Yep.
It's just about the law of the universe of asking and the law of attraction, but also the law of reciprocity and, these different things that I had never understood ever, I'd never looked at. And it just amazed me that I could shift some energy things, shift some psychology, shift some emotional piece, and it would just change what would experience. It happened for me because before I just tried so hard, slogged away, and it wasn't changing, and so I actually then did this Joe Dispenza meditations because I read about him. And it's sort of like it's just opened this world and it just started sort of dominoing, right?
Yeah.
And there was this Joe Dispenza meditation called Tuning Into New Potentials. And it's basically just tuning into like the experience that you want. And so I just was tuning in because I'd for 4 years tried to have a 10K month, which everyone in coaching would go on about, but I couldn't have it. So I was like, stuff strategy, stuff action. I've been doing it for 4 years. I'm not getting far. So I sat there and meditated for that month. I literally just meditated to this meditation and just sort of sat in gratitude and other energy things I wanted to do. This is before I knew any of this, right? And I was like literally just experimenting because I was like, I don't believe this. But I was like, I might as well give it a go. And so I did not do one action that whole month, which is so against who I am, And I just meditated and I made on the last call on that last woman I spoke to, $10,000 that month.
Wow.
And I'd never done it for 4 years of working my ass. I was like, what? But then I was like, how can I do this again? Like, this seems too crazy. Like, what is this, So I didn't actually create it consistently the next month, but I had to work on how do I use the strategy that I have? Because there's a piece of action and, this was just me experiencing. So I don't have to chuck the baby out of the bathwater. Like, there's validity in what I've learned, but how do I lean more into this energy and align my energy to what I'm wanting to create? Because for my whole life, I'd just been in scarcity and fear around money. And it was not aligned. If I want to create abundance, I can't be sitting there freaking out about money all the time. Like, that's not energetically and psychology-wise aligned. And it's also not going to create behaviors that are going to align to what I want. Mm-hmm. So I started exploring how do I tune into abundance. And it was actually, there was this 1 month, I'd committed to all these coaches and I was paying $5,000 a month to these coaches, but I'd had no clients for 4 months of my business. It was the worst time I'd ever been. And I ended up actually learning about this superconscious thing this month. And then I went back into this meditation and just this energy piece that really what I did is every time I felt scarce, because I was in $20,000 of debt. Mm-hmm. I'd borrowed some money from someone and there was not much more to borrow. Mm-hmm. And so I was actually looking at whether I had to move out of my house. Like I wasn't able to afford my life anymore. But so there's so much actual fear. And as a mother, I felt so guilty and so ashamed that I put myself and him in this position. And so I actually felt that deep fear, like I was really in a bad way, with money. And then I went back to abundance because in Melbourne, if I have a house full of things and I have a fridge, like I am abundant. I go to another country or I go 1,000 years ago, I'm living like a queen, It's just the perspective. So I would then feel abundant, feel all the gratitude. And then I'd get triggered again and get a bill and and I just kept pivoting most days back and forth between these energies. And then I just took a couple of basic actions around my clients I was working with for free at the time. But it really came from a place of serving. Like instead of I need money, so I'm going to do this because I need money from them, I really was like, I'm going to give them the best I can. I'm going to serve them the most I can. And I trust that the universe will take care of me if I do that. If I'm giving my heart, I'm going to be looked after, And the last piece is I followed my intuition because I had a strategy coach who was telling me to do these things like weren't aligned to me. It didn't feel good to me. Yep. And so I started just following what I felt was right for me. Yep. And when I did that, I had my first $20,000 month. Yeah, wow. And I've never gone back ever again. That's 4 years ago. Like in my whole life, I struggled with money and business and professional jobs, would lose jobs, like just struggled. And I've never, ever for 4 years had it again. It was just like my whole life, it was before and after,
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think hopefully people can start to feel into the reality of this, the fact that this is a possibility for anyone by the sounds of it. what are the steps? Like, how do we do it?
What's the how?
Yeah, or even maybe a step before that is like, can we set a bit of the context or the framework of like why this works?
Yeah.
Or like what's actually happening here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess, from a first point of view of an obvious point of view is that our actions and behaviors are always driven by emotion.
Mm.
So even though I was trying to take all these actions, if I'm in shame or if I'm in guilt, or if I'm depressed, which I was a lot of that time in those years, I couldn't create consistent actions because when you're depressed, you just want to hide. When you're in shame, you want to hide. You don't want to be on social media. You don't want to try and go promotions and business and jobs. And, you're not in a mode of putting yourself out there. You're in a mode of hide and you keep yourself safe, So the fundamental piece is we can't just be an action-oriented person and not consider our emotions because your actions are going to be very much affected by your emotions. So primarily from a psychological perspective, like everything we do will be changed and altered, and how the energy that we come across it will change what we're doing and how it's received. So even the action I was taking, I was asking for sales. I was getting on sales calls. Like even when I felt like I didn't want to, I was doing it, but people could sense it was off. They probably wouldn't have known why, but it was coming from desperation. And they unconscious. We're very clever people. We learn energetics as a baby. We learn energy before we learn any language. Yeah. We're emotional beings.
So they say that like communication is 7% verbal, 7% words. But I think actually energy is kind of missed out of that piece, but it's people talk about body language and things, and there's this subtle physical cues that we notice, but there's actually a lot more under that surface.
That's that, emotional piece. And so people just had a natural repulsion, even though I was making all these actions. They felt, they don't know why, but they couldn't say yes, or they didn't want to, or they maybe sort of did but didn't, it was off. So even when we do act, if we're in an off state or if we're in shame or guilt or whatever it is, it's not in alignment with what we're trying to create. It just doesn't land. It doesn't, people sense that. So that's a primarily, a primary piece. And, our consciousness, our thoughts, our psychology, like all interlink with our emotions, and they sort of cycle through. And so we're either spiraling up to empowered states of like joy and power and courage and, and taking actions from that space, or we're spiraling down and we're in despair or, hopelessness, and it sort of starts to decrease our energy. And we're in a place of contraction, and it's really hard to take any action at all, or any powerful action when we're in that space. So I think that's why our energy, our frequency, our emotional state, like really does change what we do and the outcome of what we do.
Yeah. Just want to join one dot here that I heard you say earlier as well, like where your success really shifted and came about through like one call. Like it was one call that hit 100% of the results you needed for that month. And whereas I think like, I've got a background in accounting and business as well, where often we're conditioned that it's like that just grind of constant numbers, which is valid in some contexts, I feel. But like what I'm hearing here is that Pareto principle of like the 80-20 rule, right? It's like if we're on, we can nail it all in one go.
Yeah, that's right.
But if we're off, maybe it will take 100 goes just to
if we get any
luck.
And I still try, like when I've been in avoidance mode or whatever, I've still been like, I'm just going to put all this money into ads and like it should just hit the target because it's a numbers game, right? And I'll do it. But if I'm in my off energy, even if the ads are indirectly not me, in the off energy or like and my sales girl's doing the call, it will still go to shit. Like, and it still won't happen until I get my energy behind it. Right. And that literally is just like, then bang, it starts to flow. And there's an element of, I can understand that from an emotional point of view and a behavioral point of view, but there's also an element of, there's just an energetic frequency that I can't explain to you. Yeah. We call in the quantum or the super quantum, whatever you want to call it, that it just impacts and it rolls on, and even if it's my sales girl and it's not directly me, they will still sense that. And I can't explain. I mean, Joe Dispenza and like those who study quantum physics and explain it more of a scientific perspective could probably, but I just know from many years of experience that if I'm off, doesn't matter what I do, it's off. And if I'm on, it doesn't matter what there was one time I had a program and I was doing this 2-day online event. And I wasn't feeling excited about it. I wasn't really keen about it. I wasn't into it. And so I had 7 women joining me, but it was meant to be, I wanted like 22, or, it was meant to be a bigger, just more people. And I ended up like a week and a half before, I was about to can it and whatever, but I have a real belief that we follow through and complete, even if it's not going the way we want, because there'll be more of a lesson from that than giving up. So I ended it the week and a half before it was running. I ended up getting excited about it, realizing why my heart wants to do it. What's my soul connection to it? Because before it was just like, run it because, I'm running it. Literally in that week after I did that, I had all these people join. I had 33 women total join in 1 week. Once I actually got interested and excited, my soul was connected to the experience.
Yeah, wow.
And I did one thing. I did one action that changed.
Wow.
And to go from that, I think it was 6 weeks of trying to get people into it to create 7 people.
Yeah.
And it was a hard slog, to then a couple of days, 33 in total came.
Yeah.
I just have so many stories like that.
Yeah, incredible. And it makes sense, I think, even from, anyone can relate to just the fact that there are certain people in our lives that, we just want to be around.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe we don't know why. It's not necessarily that, there's an exchange happening where, they're going to give us something in particular. It's just we feel good.
Yeah.
And so we want to spend more time with them.
Yeah.
And that's maybe a micro example of the macro of what you've been sharing.
It is. And I find that with relationships too. I might go out to the same bar that I go out with my friends, and I'm feeling just off, or I'm just not in my body or whatever. I'm just disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go and see some guys or whatever, but it's just nothing happens,
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go there the next week and I've just for some reason been turned on in my life and I'm just excited about my life and myself and my body. I feel really connected to my body and I'm really present in myself.
Yeah.
And I will literally have 15 men just coming up to me, like one of those mosquito things. It's it was just, and I'm wearing nothing. I'm in the same place, it's but just I'm on or I'm off, And it's the same with my business. I'm either, and what I find is I'm either connected to it from a soul heart level that I'm really that retreat I ran. It was so deeply fulfilling for me, and I loved the women and the connections and the relationships, and my soul was just frothing off the experience. And when I was journeying that launch of that, when I felt that towards the retreat, it went on and people were coming and magic was happening.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of the launch, I was worried about numbers. I was worried how would I look. I was worried about, is my business, if I have 2 people coming, is everyone going to think my business is crap? And is my business going to die? All this stuff I was worried about, and it was my ego and my unconscious fears that were brought to predominant. Nothing was going on when that happened, and everyone was saying no or couldn't do it, or they'd come in, they'd pull out or whatever. Yeah. And then as soon as I was my soul, I'm like, why am I doing this from a deep level? What am I really wanting here? What if it's not about the number? What if it's just, what else is this about? And as soon as I sort of talk about it like a seesaw, it's it's down and in the unconscious ego energy and it just blocks everything. It's constricted and hard and, or it's in my soul and really light and just feels beautiful. And I was like, if I had one person there, or even if I don't, I just take my family, it's all good. It's awesome, and when I'm in that space, it flows. Yeah. When I'm that, it's stuck.
Okay, amazing. So let's lift the lid. How do we do this? Give us the magic formula. Magic things.
Okay. It's funny. One of my mentors, William Whitecloud's very, learn a lot of his superconscious. He often says because he talks about these as the hacks, and he's like, I can't make you do a hack if you're going to go off to war, you're not going to do a 1-minute hack, he always says you can't do it. But I have a heart in the wanting to give some hacks, as well, because I think people can still practice some things.
Yeah, it helps to build some momentum, right?
Yeah, and to trial it.
Trust.
Yeah. The first thing that's coming to me is actually to play with this. At the beginning of my journey when I was have no idea about energy, no idea about this, what is this world, the idea of I'm just going to trial some of this stuff or play with it, or and there's a book called E squared E2 by Pam Grout, and it's just basically these magic little play challenges that you can do, and it teaches you about energy, and it's just really fun and practical. And she doesn't necessarily explain a lot. If you want the sort of understanding, Joe Dispenza's a lot better with that, but it's just playful games with the universe. And so I'd really encourage people to just start with that. I've had clients begin with that and then start asking for clients and just magically manifest stuff, from that same idea of play with the universe. So that would be the first thing that's coming to mind, to just get people to for me, when I was had no idea and then just like, wanted to start to learn, like that was really powerful to just, there's like physical, practical things you can do to show you like that energy works,
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing I think I would love to say about how, I think the most basic, clearest way, because I've got like so many different strategies I use, on this and teach my clients. But the most fundamental, I would say, is firstly connect to your heart and your soul and who you truly are, like your true identity. And what I mean that is that, if you go in your lifetime, and this might be a bit weird, but if you go in your lifetime before you're even born to the point when you were just an essence, and you were in the universe or a star, because they actually show that we've got gold and stardust in our cells, which is where we've actually come from.
Somewhere.
Yeah. So if you connect to that before you were even born, before you started to form an identity, before you started to form these unconscious beliefs, like connect to that and go, who I truly am, like what would I love? Like just being in that energy of like, what would I love? Not because I'm broken, I need to fix it. Not because I need to prove myself. Not because I need to prove I'm worthy. Like none of that, because none of that's real. Like that's not happened yet. Just from that space of like your wholeness and your full pure potential, from potentiality, really, what would you love? And just ask yourself like that question. And so for me, it's like, coaching or retreats or just like experience with my family, like travel, like, these are things that I just love innately, I'm inherently connected to. So that would be the first step, is really tuning into like, who are you really, and just what would you love from that whole space, not to complete yourself, but from wholeness.
Yep.
And then the second thing would be...
So is another way people could word that, like, feel free to correct me, is like, like if money was no object.
Yeah.
And I was like,
if you had no
if
problems.
I was retired and I could just do whatever I wanted, like what would I do?
Yes. Great way to ask it is like, if I had no problems and none of this was, I had everything I wanted, like what would I love?
Yeah.
Just imagining, because there's a lot of people want money because they don't have money, or like, want this stuff because they're lacking it. It's coming from lack in the beginning.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to practically ask. Yeah. If I just had everything I wanted and everything was perfect, like what would I love?
Yeah. Cool.
And so that's really getting you to connect more from your soul, like into deeper levels within you. Like, what do you actually desire? What's your true desire? So that would be the first thing. The second part then would be what I'd call a truth circle. In that, step in and you go, okay, well, what's my current reality right now? Like, what is my real? What I think is a problem? What don't I like about myself? What am I afraid of? What's my worst case scenario? Like, just sort of like we're doing a GPS, right? We go, okay. Patty and I want to go on a trip and we want to go up to Hamilton Island. But right now we're in this exact location in Melbourne, and we need to be very clear with the universe and with our superconscious. Like, here's what I want. Here's where I want to be. This is what I'd love. But I'm here, and this is the truth. And we got to really be specific. We got to say the exact number, because they can't set the thing if we're just saying we're in Melbourne.
If we want
to go to Queensland and we're in Melbourne. It's like, how the heck, doesn't know where to put you.
Yeah.
And so it's just really being really clear on what you really love, and then also being really clear on what you are really not loving, or just what's true of right now, where you're at, what you think about, what you're afraid of, how you think you're not capable, whatever, I
could see how that could be challenging as well, as to like have that level of honesty with ourselves about like I am actually quite far away from what I want. Like, is that...
It is. It's very difficult. And the whole point of this is it's bringing up the discrepancy, which will bring up tension, and it brings up much of discomfort. The ego doesn't want to not be where it wants to be. So it will do one of two things. Either it will squash the vision and take away and say, oh, I don't actually want an international retreat, which is what I've done. I just want one in Melbourne. It's okay. Like one in Melbourne just for 2 days. That's enough. It's like no, I want a week in Bali, and I don't even want to do that. I want to go to Egypt. I want to go to Maldives. I want, but I'll just settle for this. And so that's one thing. It will take the vision to like nothing, so that it's like, this is possible. That's not. Or it will deny the current reality and be like, oh, it's actually not that bad, because it can't face off with the tension. But creation has to have tension. If you think about a bow and arrow and you go, okay, I'm hitting the target, you've got to lean into the resistance for it to move forward. And if you give up because you start feel tension and it hurts your arm and you stop quarter of the way, it doesn't go anywhere.
It's a great metaphor.
Yeah. So this tension is required. The going backwards goes forwards, stepping back into discomfort and feeling crap actually is what helps you propel.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So that the amount that people can go into the truth, the amount people can sit with the discomfort, the amount you can face off with how you actually feel, like is the layer and the depth of how far you can go and propel.
Interesting.
You know?
A way to interpret this from the things that I've studied is that it sounds like by getting comfortable with our shadows, like the parts of ourselves that we've previously judged, by integrating that, we make ourselves more whole, and our capacity to experience the darkness is matched by our capacity to experience the light.
Exactly, yeah. Or, you know, the capacity to go down into the hell and is the capacity to hurt the heights of heaven, you know, like, and we often stop and, you know, don't want to. And so, and ultimately, you know, these parts of us are just our inner child and the parts that have been hurt, and it just wants love, you know, it just wants to be seen and loved. And so, yeah, our ability to hold the deep vision of what we really want, but then also see the truth right now of what we're deeply thinking, I'm not worthy, whatever the deep fears are, you know, whatever identities are that are blocking it, like to see, and then just to keep going, but I still want this. I see this, and I see my retreat. I had to go, I see that I may not create it. I see that it could make me look like an idiot. I see that maybe one person might come. Like, I had to just acknowledge all that and go, but I still want this, and I'm still going to go for it. And then I'd tune into, like, the vision again, really connect to my heart of why, the deep why I want it, not the ego. And I'd acknowledge the ego wanting the image and the status and of a retreat and, like, the videos and, you know. But I'd go, well, what do I really want? I want this connection with these women. I want this transformation in depth with them in a beautiful travel location. Like, and I take an action really from the space of that wholeness and go, okay, what's obvious? Like, okay, it's obvious I run a masterclass. It's obvious I reach out to these couple of people and message them and let them know I'd love them to come. It's obvious I ask the people involved to invite someone because I love them to have someone they have loved there.
Yeah.
Like, these are just obvious things. If I'm in this and I'm imagining this is happening, what's obvious that I would do? It's like I don't even have to study strategy.
Interesting.
You know?
It sounds like this is a slightly different angle on it, but I'd love to know if this aligns. Is almost sounds like another way could be that you're really getting clearer on the vision of, like, your absolute ideal best case. So like the ideal best case is you've got a retreat filled with people you love and they're all connected to people they love. And so, like, to create that vision beyond just the easy things to see, seeing the layers of, like, everything that you want and being really clear about that makes those next steps clear as well. Yeah,
well, I guess it's in my mind, it's sort of like, and this is something that I used to do with Joe Spencer and the meditation stuff, is like actually propel into the future of like you're living that right now and with all your senses on, and just see the different layers. And I'd see a woman coming up to me and being really grateful and expressing in tears like her gratitude of the experience. I'd see, and everyone's is different, right? But I'd see this immersion in the waterfall with them and, like, them just having this big breakthrough. I'd see an intuitive reading, then, like, crying from it or whatever, like, and us laughing on the dinner table, like, and I just and that's where I'm, like, it's like my soul's tethering and connecting. It's like, this is what I want. This is so exciting to me. And it builds momentum and excitement. Whereas when I'm in the ego, it destroys it and it makes me really afraid and it gets me really attached. And so it's just lightning. And then as I'm in that, it just naturally pops these, like, nudges and these ideas of what to do with it. You know, I had this idea to run a challenge that just randomly came to me, and it was just really obvious. And then I had a couple of other people talk about it in the same day, which they normally don't. And so it was like, okay, this is clear. So it just generates creative genius ideas that we may not have even thought of, you know, because we're really living and embodying it. You know, but that, you know, that, I mean, alchemy, it's the core, and intuition at its core is like around love, truth, and wisdom, you know, and the triangle of love, truth, and wisdom. And so if I'm going to tell someone what I do on a very practical daily level of all the things I want to create, and this can be applied to everything, is, I just tune into what I love with it. I tune into the truth of the now, you know, with it. And then I go into what's obvious, what's next. If I'm in what I love, what's obvious. And I just, throughout the day, I might bing around in that when I get stuck and I get, you know, triggered, or I think it's not possible, you know, I'll just do that, you know, step into what I love, step into a truth circle and just go back to what's obvious. And that's it. There's a lot more I could say, but that's the most fundamental part of what I would do.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And so from a leadership perspective, obviously, like, you're leading, like, women on the retreat, the women in your groups that you run over multiple weeks or months. And I know you also have some staff that support you in the mission as well.
Yeah.
How do you apply this to like leading a team or leading a group?
It's an interesting question because like the first thing that comes up when you say that is, you know, in this process, I have these like daily visions that I tune in every morning to, like, I've got like 10 things I'm creating, you know, at any point. And it could be around business or life or travel or my health or my relationship, like everything. And I actually had this vision of like a team and a really supportive, beautiful team that really meet me and like are really aligned to me. And I literally, all I did was tune into that vision. And that was it. I didn't even take any action around it. I just felt that experience of being held and supported by these really beautiful aligned souls. And that next month of doing that, I had like 7. I went from 1 or 2 in my team to like 8 in my team. And people just referred people to me and said, and I hadn't even said to them I'm looking or anything. They just messaged me and said, hey, came to mind that this girl would be really great for you. I think you should look at her. You know, like that was like, so that's an example of like, yeah, I just tuned into my heart and the vision, and it just super consciously, like, it can happen from us taking steps and actions. And majority of the time there are still actions to take. And obviously I have to maintain the team and like connect to them and, you know, but that was an experience where I just attracted it through my energy. But I maintain it from action. In terms of leading my clients, how do I use this work with them?
Yeah, and I think actually like a more macro question for me is like, you want to support someone else, whether it's a client or a team member, in achieving their goals, even if those goals are in support of you. Is this something that you can, like, I know you obviously teach this to them, but do you even like integrate their choices into your choices, or do you like, is there a way that there's like some kind of
a lot of the time, honestly, like, and again, this is why this is so fundamental and like it seems simple, but I just apply this all the time, is that I will be in like love circles with them of what they're visioning, but I'll also equally be in truth if something's coming up in our relationship or they're avoiding something or they've disconnected from the group, or like I will have a truth conversation, you know, and meet them in that, in love and truth. So I'll apply the same circles and principles like to all my relationships that I have as well. But in terms of them, how I do it with them practically and supporting them and coaching them through it is like, and again, this is the fundamental. There's a lot of other things, but we will actually step into a circle and like say they want to create a business or they want to get a promotion, you know, or they want to be a leader. Like one of my clients used to be in law and still in law, but she wanted to be seen in her leadership in law and get, you know, this award that was very well known. And so I would tune into the vision of that with her, and we'd actually step in and see intuitively like what we see around it, what's her heart really wanting from it, what's the true desire there, and we'd see it and talk about it together, and we'd both be tuning in. And then we'd step into the current reality and you can see what her fears are, what's actually coming up for her, like what's the block, like what's actually the ego doing that's in the way, or what does she think she needs to become to be worthy of it, or whatever it is, right? And then we'd go back to love and go, what's the bridge? What's the thing that's obvious? What's the next? And we both tune in and we both share what we get. Yeah. So this is a practice that as a coach, like the most fundamental part of superconscious work is that I would be doing this for all the 10 things that they're creating. Yeah. We'd do it together. Yeah. And the beautiful thing I love about it is that it's growing. Like, so I've had the same Williams be my coach for 4 years in this, but it's not, I'm not needing him as a coach because he's powerful and I need, you know, he's just developing my genius and my superconscious, and we're doing it together. Yeah. And so that's why I've been with him longer than anyone, because it's not just some coach that you need to learn how to do things. And he's actually just building my connection to my superpower.
Not outsourcing your power.
That's right.
Just holding that space.
Yeah, and helping me refine my laser beam of my intuition, you know? Incredible. So that's what I would do with clients as well, you know, or yes, my staff.
Yeah. I'm also listening to this through the lens of like a manager at a company, for example, and working with team members, wanting to help them achieve their goals, which are aligned to the company goals. Which, you know, obviously there's a conversation there about how aligned they are to that person's true nature. That's maybe a separate piece. But what I'm, I guess, hearing, and I'd love your reflections on this, is that concept of love, truth, wisdom, which the way I'm understanding it is that really tuning into like the love of what is like the most win-win outcome for the team member, the business, the clients, you as the manager.
Yeah.
The thing that
the highest good of all.
Everybody,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And then being super honest in a loving way with that team member about how things currently are.
Yeah.
And in a way that they feel, supported, and it's not like solely on them.
Yeah.
Because it's a team effort.
Yeah.
But like also honest about performance as well.
Yeah.
And then together, like sitting in that discomfort and then listening for like what's the obvious plan to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
Does that
no, for sure. And this is the thing that I love about this as well, is that like so many people are in this work that are in corporate and haven't done any other personal development, because it's not, I mean, we talked about different woo-woo elements, but the actual practicality of this isn't woo-woo at all, and it's very, very practical, very simple to apply. And one of William's clients, he's now in 4 years like of working, he's now in like a 9-figure company that wins multiple awards in the UK. And they're a consulting company, and so he would just be doing this work like with all like his management team, and then they'd be doing it with their employees, and that's how they've pivoted and created what they have, And it's incredibly powerful, like how it comes about from a corporate perspective, because, for instance, he was in the hospitality industry, but then he got a nudge from his intuition to change into a whole other industry. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like completely different. I think finance consulting or something.
Yeah.
And he had 51% share of the company. It's huge. He didn't know why. The superconscious didn't tell him why, but he just knew he had to change it. And he made the decision. Everyone's like, what the F? And then 6 months later, COVID happened. Their whole business would have gone under.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
And so this is what, like, and I could tell you more things, but like it's just so applicable to corporate. And there's just ways that it's weaved, just these miraculous things that grow and exponentially grow. Magic exponentially grows things when you use these principles, So yeah, you definitely be able to do that and use it at a management level, you know. And again, it's not it's just about end results and the vision but the true vision, and then connecting to what's the gaps, what's the current space, and in the current, it's not just acknowledging everything's bad. Like you want to acknowledge also what is great and what is developing, and but going, okay, what's the obvious piece and it's not what we necessarily rationally think is obvious, it's what we receive, because sometimes it doesn't seem like the smart idea, but it's just what is actually going to make the difference.
Yeah, I'm also hearing what you're sharing there, like how we often like look up to these visionary entrepreneurs, whether it be Steve Jobs or Richard Branson or Elon Musk, who seem crazy. Right? It's that old saying that there's a fine line between genius and insanity. But I feel like what I'm hearing in all of this is that like our rational mind is going to tell us the ways it's been done before.
Yes.
Whereas our intuition is going to tell us like the new interesting way that like is going to solve this and completely customize way the situation.
It's a completely original, and again, you think about the Elon Musk and you think about Beyonce and these people who are just brilliant geniuses in the industry across like artists, music, corporate, like any field. None of them copy anything. The copier of Beyonce, the little woman who sings at the little bar, that's trying to look like Beyonce. Like she's not getting anything, any money or any accolades that Beyonce is going to get, because Beyonce is Beyonce and she's fully owning her genius, fully stepping in. Same as Elon Musk, and so that's the key. And you've just really nailed that, in that the ego and the unconscious and the rational mind wants to just replicate and model and copy, which it will never be anywhere near as valuable as what the genius and that new creation that wants to spur through us, will be and will come about.
Amazing. Yeah, this is exciting stuff.
It is.
Awesome. Is there anything else around this that you feel like needs to be said to make that concept complete for this conversation?
I feel like we've summarized the core elements to it. I guess the only thing, again, coming back to the person who maybe this is quite new for them or they haven't done a lot of this before, it seems a bit like this is a bit bizarre, I just really encourage people, the same as how I felt when I first saw this and stumbled upon it, is just to really try things and really just experiment, imagining that it is true and it is real, and just see how it goes. Like, because that was the energy I came at it, because before I was like, this is weird, like, what is all this? But when I just played with it and just tried and experimented, put it on, I was just amazed at what like miracles happened, And so I think that's the best way to approach it.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, just dive in and have a play, have a try.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Miranda. Well, thank you so much for this conversation and like all of the incredible insights, but also the belief that I'm personally taking away from this, of like how possible this and anything is.
Yeah.
It's really inspiring.
Everyone, this is what I always say, Oprah, Beyonce, Elon Musk, whatever, everyone has an equal human, and an equal genius in all of us. And so whatever I create, whatever you create, whatever they create, it means it's possible, because they have a human and an ego just trying to stop them, and they have a genius that's wanting them to go and to the limitless potentials, So if someone does it, we can all do it, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Beautiful. Are there any final messages you want to share with anyone listening?
I think the last thing I'll say is just, at the end of the day, everything that we're creating just comes back to the energy that we have and where we're putting our focus.
Yeah.
Because for me, my whole 33 years of my life, I basically created nightmare after nightmare, worst case thing I could ever imagine. I just kept creating my worst possible thoughts, Not all the time, but a lot of the time, and things I didn't want. And I felt very disempowered, and I felt, even though I'd studied so much and tried to figure out the answer, I still was getting to nowhere.
Yeah.
And to realize that it wasn't me. It doesn't mean that I'm stuffed and I was always going to have that life or anything, but just realize it's just been a result of where I've been focusing. I've been putting a lot of energy and focus unconsciously in things I don't want. And I just started shifting my focus and playing more. Joe Dispenza has this quote, something around like putting more energy in the vision of and our imagination of what we want versus the memory of the past and and all I did at that age when I was 33, and that 1 month it changed and everything began to change, and I could just tell you, like, it was a before and after moment for me, this BCAD. I literally just started putting more power and energy and time focusing through the day on my imagination and on what I wanted. Still acknowledging my fear, but just 51%. I just started to just slightly focus a little bit more on my imagination and vision and a little bit less on what I didn't want, And if that was it, that made all the difference to me. And I just now continue to slightly change. And I'm still in my stuff. I still get freaked out. It doesn't mean we don't need to. It's just slight predominant, in the house, with politics, like who wins? 51% majority. Like it just has to be a slight. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be high vibe 24/7. Yeah. Actually, that's BS and it won't work. Yeah. Just acknowledge your fears, but then put some energy into your imagination, what you want. And if you do that, that already will change so much. Yeah. Just that one simple thing.
And to me, when I hear you say that, I'm like, well, what have we got to lose?
Exactly. Yeah.
How's life going to get worse?
We'll just feel better at least, like when nothing else happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing, Miranda. Firstly, I just want to say a quick thank you to the Melbourne Higher marching band that had a little cameo there as well. Hopefully it wasn't too obvious on the recording. Yeah. But massive thank you to you. We'll put some links to how people can contact you in the show notes. So anyone who wants to connect with Miranda, you can find her on Instagram and all the other platforms. And you'll be able to find that in the show notes. So thanks for listening. And
thank you.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, Patty.
Much love. Much love. Thanks for listening to Leaders with Heart today. We appreciate you taking the time to tune in. And if you found value in today's episode, we would appreciate it massively if you shared this with a friend or a colleague. This is something that can massively benefit their day. And I also appreciate it so much because in the early days of building a podcast, anything like liking, subscribing, giving it a 5-star review, it all supports me spreading this message and mission of leading with heart with as many people as possible. So much gratitude to you for being here. And if you want to connect, I also love hearing from you. You can find mine and the guests' social media details in the show notes below. Mine are paddymac.truth on Instagram and Leaders with Heart on LinkedIn. The website leaderswithheart.com.au is another place you can find me. But until next time, have a beautiful day and sending you so much love.